more skill sets are required in terms of how you analyze the data, right? So this is, I think we all are in a world where we want to have data driven decision making, no doubt about it, in all aspects, not just in logistics and distribution, but overall supply chain. And how can you enable that with the help of digital? As Ryan started initially, technology is playing and will continue to play a very, very strong role.
Mr. Ryan Vegas, consultant, pharma and healthcare industry, to kindly come on the stage and to honor us by being the moderator. A warm welcome, big round of applause to Ryan, please. Thank you. To join Mr. Ryan Vegas, may invite Mr. Pramod Patwardhan, API Regional Supply Head, External Supply, Small Molecules, Global Supply Chain, GSK, please. Big round of applause. May invite Mr. Vilas Ribello, Head Logistics India and APEC, Teva Pharmaceuticals, to join us, please. Thank you. Kindly take your seat. Miss Ashu Gupta, Vice President, Supply Chain, Koye Pharmaceuticals, may invite you on stage. Thank you, ma'am. Please sit down. Miss Reshmi Iyer, Head of Distribution, Merck Life Science, may invite you on stage. Thank you, warm welcome. And finally, Mr. Gaurav Bhatia, Head Planning, General Manager Supply Chain, Reliance Retail Pharma. Kindly take your seats. Mr. Ryan Vegas, you will now lead. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I guess you can hear me, right? So for those who haven't heard the topic, it's the role of leaders in developing talent in modern pharma supply chains. I think this topic is of particular interest, as you all know, that with advanced technology, the industry tends to assume that technology will deliver products to customer. While we are not there yet, we must remember that technology is an enabler, and it's the people who continue to drive supply chains. While we are very privileged to have 5 senior leaders, all from the pharmaceutical industry, so we have all people from top people from top companies on this panel, I thought I'd like to share some kind of experience which I had this week. It's a very basic example, but it can give us some thoughts and ideas. I had been on a business road trip to a warehouse in Wada, which is around 80 kilometers away. And under normal road conditions, it would take an hour and a half. So, but as you know, we are in monsoon, and it took me 4 hours each way. So bad roads would be a polite way of describing the huge ditches where the undercarriage of the vehicle was scraping. And in several long stretches of the roads appear to have disappeared completely. Of course, due to the monsoons. All through my travel, I was concerned about the condition of my back. So I said, yeah, I'm really concerned. Then I started thinking, what about the condition of backs of our truck drivers who drive day and night? As I stayed in a hotel on the highway, it's an interior place in a village. The whole night, I could hear the noise of trucks bouncing on the roads. You could hear loud sounds, even though it was a AC room. The loud sounds of trucks bouncing on the road across the highway. I said, can you imagine the condition of the products inside those trucks? I mean, if you have drums, if you have bottles, if you have injectables, they're all being bounced on these roads for kilometers at a stretch. What would be the condition of these products? So on one side, I'd say we are an advanced economy with advanced technology, but on the other side, we still have infrastructure which has lots to improve, even in this advanced age of ours. In several places along the route, there was no mobile transmission. So it made me wonder, how would technology like driverless vehicles work? Yeah, since we're talking about technology, everything, I think Srinivas Rao talked about touchless, touch-free logistics. So if we need to go there, how would it work without technology? So at the end of the day, I saw it was the physical talent, the skill, and the health of the driver who drove me safely. Similarly, it would be the same condition with the drivers of our trucks. I'm using a very basic level to start with. So it's little wonder why the newer generation are hesitant to become truck drivers. So I do understand in our country we have a lot of shortage about basic truck drivers, which is actually the base of logistics in our country. So without speaking too much about this, I said I would now request our expert panel members, all from the pharma supply chain and distribution and retail. We have a very nice mix of panelists to share their experiences and knowledge on the role of leaders for developing talent for pharma supply chains. And I think I'll come to my first question straight away, and maybe I'll pick on Vilas. I don't have to pick on in order or sequence. So, and of course, whoever wants to add is free. We are going to have a very free-flowing discussion here, so please don't wait for a Q&A kind of session. We're going to have a discussion, okay? So, can you throw some light on what skill sets leaders look for in candidates to fit supply chain and logistics role in pharma industry? One side. And the other side, what are the current skill gaps currently in distribution, and how we as an industry can strive to overcome them?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. So, in a pharma supply chain, a logistics role falls at the last stage, and there is a lot of pressure on logistic team to deliver the products, though there has been delays in the earlier stages. To have a better person in this pharma supply chain and specifically logistics, a person, if I feel, then it should be like he should have a technical knowledge in terms of regulatory, GDP, GMP compliance, in terms of cold chain, product handling, sensitive products, maybe biologics or biosimilars. And the person should also have soft skills. Soft skills meaning he should be able to communicate interdepartment with his peers, with his colleagues, with his site, and also with the stakeholders, the service providers. So it's a mix of both technical and the communication. This will help them to develop and have a smooth supply chain, a logistic person who can take away on this edge. Now, apart from this, he should also be capable of taking on challenges. Pharma supply chain, everything changes as the last minute. It's not like we did yesterday this, tomorrow will be also this. No, everything changes depending on the scenarios. So challenges are there. How he overcomes the challenges, how he can come up with a solution. To get such solution, how he is interacting with his external partners. So these are some of the factors which we feel or we should think about when we have to take on with a product or a people which we should deploy for the future supply chain.
Thank you, Mila.
I may just add to it some of the important skill, I think, in SCM or specifically logistics is multitasking. So as you are in logistics and SCM, you're all the time doing 10 different things at the same time. That's one important skill. And of course, the art of negotiation is an important skill to have. You're negotiating with vendors, or negotiating with 3PLs, and so on. So I think these are some of the skills which definitely one should look for.
Gaurav, would you like to share
Yeah,
something?
I would like to add here. So I think as Vilas and Ashu rightly mentioned, so there are certain things I think in the pharma industry that is happening good, and maybe some data points I think I want to give, which will further solidify the fact that in why India is called the global pharma hub. So two three data points here. One, right now we export 28 US billion dollars. So 28 billion dollars we export, India exports to the global markets. Out of that, in fact, we are going to be 35 billion USD by 2030. So that's a staggering growth at a CAGR of almost 12 to 13%. Next, we supply 25% of the US demand from India, and 40% of the Europe demand from India, 70% of the global demand for vaccines from India. So which I think very clearly with these numbers solidify the fact that why India is the global pharma hub, and why the distinguished members here sitting deserve a round of applause, please, for a moment. I think all the fraternity, supply chain fraternity, really deserve an applause. And we have largely been doing something good so far. That's why this talent is there in this room. We need to do a lot more, of course, no denial on the fact. And there are certain skill sets which we are talking about, or certain aspects where the young talent can even look forward. And by all due respect, even I think the members sitting here and the panel sitting here is quite young. I just upgraded myself to understand and learn more. I did my epic CSCP just a year back, again to understand more about the supply chain industry. And I think particularly those who are interested in logistics and distribution can even go for a more deeper course on CLTD, which is into logistics and distribution. More skill sets are required in terms of how you analyze the data, right? So this is, I think we all are in a world where we want to have data driven decision making, no doubt about it, in all aspects, not just in logistics and distribution, but overall supply chain. And how can you enable that with the help of digital? As Ryan started initially, technology is playing and will continue to play a very, very strong role. Logistics is also perceived, or even I perceived, if I take a quick moment here, when I entered the industry, in supply chain industry, close to around 1.5 decade back, I felt it's more of an execution job. It's about, let's move in the truck and let's push off the truck by filling the space. But when I did a lot of these courses and upgradations, I understood, no, there's a lot more that each and every individual can do. For instance, you can get into the skill set of network optimization. There are specialists in terms of network optimization, in terms of how do they crunch the time of delivery. Even in the previous panel, somebody was referring to that. Without increasing your cost, you can bring down your time to delivery. One. Second, how do you again reduce your cost, not just by negotiation with your vendors and partners, but by also studying and getting into the details of, there's something called as design for packaging. So how do you design, how do you study that, how can I fulfill or maximize the space, and how do I maximize the box size, the box space, the design of the boxes, etc., in a truck, in a container. So all these are very, very important subjects and skill sets, which I think we do not have a very, I would say, deep understanding. We all know, I'm sure, but deeper understanding gives you a lot of opportunity to reduce cost without getting into the negotiation or without getting into the arm twisting, because ultimately it's the partnership with all the LSPs and logistics service providers, or freight forwarders, etc., that we need to coexist. That cannot be the only lever for getting your budgets and your cost optimized. So I think we'll talk more about these subjects and skill set as we go deeper during the conversation. But initial take from me.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Gaurav.
And Ryan,
Please go ahead.
other than these functional capabilities which the team has elaborated, I would just like to add two things which is important to everybody, including pharma logistics, is our learning agility. How we, as professionals, keep learning. And the second part is, I think we discussed in the earlier sessions, the influencing skill. Because most of these projects could be successful if we have the right kind of influencing skill and the ability to work in the matrix organization. So just wanted to add that.
No, fantastic.
Absolutely.
If you ask me to add something, I would say, a passion for the job would be one of the important skills, because quite often people just work like robots, just do their job because they have to do something. But if you have a real passion for the job, then you can come with so many innovative ideas, something unique, something which can be tailor-made for your own supply chain based on the environment, say in India, based on the environment on the customer side. So one needs to understand both sides and come up with a unique way of doing things. And just a copy-paste solution from certain countries to here may not be the best solution for here. So I think a passion will really make you go deep into the subject and then suggest something to improve.
And just one more point on your last. I'm just picking that cue. Keeping, I think, customer at the center and designing your solutions around it. Logistic and distribution has a lot of scope. So we all know customer wants agility. We all know customer wants convenience. Customer wants reliability, and customer now also wants visibility. With all the technologies and digitals of the world, customer wants these three ARV, right? So when you keep the customer at the center and design your solution, I think you can reach at the best possible solution, keeping at the customer, like you said. Right?
Fantastic. Second point is logistics is perceived to be a male profession. Of course, we have 5 shippers here and 40% are females.
Are you sure?
You have 40% female ratio. But if you see the audience here, I think 5%, 10% would be female-male ratio. So anyway, I'm going to ask this topic to the ladies, starting with Rashmi first. What is your opinion about encouraging female employees in these roles, and what can industry do to support such initiatives?
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. This is a question very close to my heart. I think logistics and warehousing has since long been a very male-dominated space. However, over the recent years, we have been having this industry attracting more women, possibly because it's a very fast-moving, very dynamic, and an innovative industry. If you actually think about it, leadership is not about being a man or a woman, right? It's all about a combination of empathy, competence, and driving an impactful team. And I strongly believe that men and women come with their unique thought processes, their unique ideas, and a combination of both, a blend of both can actually bring wonders to any function, not just logistics or warehousing. It would be any function. Yes, professional women do face challenges handling work life and your career. And there are times when family responsibilities can limit women's ability to pursue leadership roles. Hence, it's extremely important that you need to balance, as a woman, you need to balance your career as well as your family so that you're able to give quality time to your family as well as ensure that you do not deviate from your professional commitments. I just mentioned about this industry being a very fast-paced and also a very innovative industry. So I would like to share an example here where I myself, when I joined logistics maybe a decade back, I realized that logistics is not just about your regular KPIs. What actually made it more interesting was the fantastic amount of projects, very innovative projects that I got an opportunity to handle in logistics. And one such project that I handled in Merck was the distribution network optimization, where me and my team had to transition from our age-old warehouses across India to very compliant, new, safe warehouses. And this whole process wherein, you need to close your old warehouses, you need to have those difficult discussions with your service providers who have been with you for so many years, set up new warehouses. and the knowledge transfer, the people transfer, the inventory management, building a roadmap in this whole process for those 4 years, I think the amount of experience and the knowledge that I gained during this entire process was immense. And personally, I feel this helped me becoming more agile, more resilient, and adaptive to change. In addition to this, what I feel today, the scenario in warehousing and logistics is much different than what it was a decade back. Not only as an organization, but also as a country, we are developing. We are progressing. And I still believe, I recollect maybe 10 years back when I used to travel to the 3PL locations across India, when I used to travel to transport hubs. There were times when we couldn't even find washrooms for women, And even when we found washrooms, they were really not hygienic enough. And this used to be a real put-off. And when I used to go to transport hubs, I used to only find a huge line of trucks and truck drivers and cleaners and not a single woman around. Now, those were the times when I personally used to feel whether this is the right career that I have taken, or should I go to a more women-friendly career. But then I think the patience paid off. As I said, today the distribution centers are much more accessible. They have much, much better infrastructure than what was earlier. I think organizations do focus a lot on women's safety, women's security, not just Merck. I think it's across. Most of the organizations do that while women travel, for accommodation of women. And I think that's something we need to appreciate as women. Moreover, the automation and the digitalization initiatives that have come up in warehousing and distribution over the past few years, I think that's fantastic. It's immense. We have automated storage and retrieval systems. We have warehouse management systems. I remember we used to earlier do a lot of work, paperwork, manual picking, manual put away of material. But now with warehouse management systems, we have barcode scanners, which we are able to scan the QR codes of the products that we receive. And this has made life so much easier. Inventory management is so much faster. We have error-free work. So I think this should actually be a motivation for women, that warehousing and distribution has changed over the last decade. And also with organizations focusing on DE&I, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. I think women are also getting opportunities to work in areas where possibly they would hesitate to go ahead. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Ashu, would you like to add something?
Of course. Yeah, my personal experiences, I would like to share a few of them. My entry into logistics was actually by chance, and I never wanted to choose this as a field. In fact, during my MBA, I did not take the subject logistics and supply chain because it was a UNIF subject and was low scoring. So I was in marketing, and I was coming first throughout. So I wanted my marks to be the highest. So I excluded logistics and I specialized in marketing. And I'd always, like a typical MBA who's starry-eyed and has fanciful notions of joining companies like the HULs of the world. And this is how we graduated. But all said and done, I was unhappy with my then organization. And the reference, I came across this opening at Lupin that time, which was in distribution. And I wasn't keen at all, but not having a job on my hand, which was suitable, I did take it up with the thought that, okay, fine, theek hai, chalta hai, few months and I'll shift out to marketing. And this is what I told my then boss also. Any opportunity comes up at Lupin in marketing, please allow me to shift. Fine, you come in. He was keen on getting an MBA because I think even today, largely, MBAs do not take up logistics or supply chain as a career. And women, of course, never really. And there's a dearth of MBAs in supply chain and followed by women in MBAs in supply chain. So with that, of course, I joined supply chain or logistics, and I'm still there. I love it. It's my passion. I got a number of opportunities to shift to marketing, but I chose to remain in logistics because I started loving that challenging job. That's one. And coming to, yes, logistics is perceived to be a male bastion. I think it's one is more so in India and more so in pharma. So one is if you go to the US, you find that I think more than 80% of the supply chain professionals are manned by women. So why is it that in India it's not happening? And my take is that women are born supply chain managers. So if you look at your own house, your wives or your daughters or your mothers, so do you, inventory management? So women have been doing it from day one. So you're managing the groceries, you're managing whatever you need in the house. So do you have stock outs? So the women know the concept of stock out, know the concept of safety stock. So you know how much of the sugar in tea or the toothpaste is to be maintained. You're managing, you're outsourcing, the concept of third party. You're having a mate. So if you look at supply chain, every concept is definitely more familiar to the woman than it was to the man. So there's no reason for logistics, to be perceived as a male bastion. But yes, and pharma industry, all said and done, has been biased to choosing males. My first job in 88, I was chosen practically more because I was an MBA. So kind of I was chosen. And after that, there have been numerous times that I haven't been called for interviews just because I'm of the female gender. And, cannot imagine that even after I've been in the field for over 35 years. And yet, yes, yesterday I got a call from one of my known colleagues in a pharma company, I'll not name it, who's outside Mumbai. And they're looking for a distribution head. And that lady, she's a woman from the sales and marketing, and she told me, they're looking for a distribution head. That's it's fine. So it's out of Mumbai. I said, okay. So she wanted me to, of course, help her get somebody, not for me. But she mentioned, no, Ashu, but they want a male. I said, what? Yeah, they want a male, there's a lot of traveling involved. I said, oh my God. So even after all these years, yet this is how pharma industry is. But I think women like Rashmi and myself, and we have made inroads into the pharma industry. I think it's our hard work. And of course, it's the perception. So women are perceived in particular, notion that they can't handle this. So I was told, how will you handle transporters? They are rough. And how will you handle warehouses? But I've handled, and today every transporter is so respectful to me. It's 35 years. People know me in the industry. Warehouses, I have worked in DC. I've been the sole woman with 300 workers around. And people have been scared for me. We've had strikes and all kinds of things. I worked in retail for 3 years where I was a sole woman in a DC of 400 people. And to the extent, of course, my number was pasted across every DC because any emergency, since I was a head, I should be called. And yes, of course, it was not easy because, of course, as she highlighted, the basic facilities have been missing. During my retail days, I know the full day you're not able to relieve yourself because you're not there's no hygienic place to relieve yourself. So you can't take a bio break. And the workers, they look at you differently. So I've gone through all of that, but it just needs guts to be there. And so I think it's up to the males to accept women. We are there for staying. Thank you.
No, I agree with you. Basically, I think, yes, then it is a responsibility of probably the more privileged male members as leaders to be aware of the impact this bias has on some of the probably less privileged, in this case, female. And how do we remove those barriers and enable in terms of recruitment or in terms of promotion so that it's all become more level playing for everybody?
So with this, I'm sure Ashu and Rashmi have encouraged more and more women to get into supply chain logistics
yes.
roles.
Just to add on, for an example, we had an opening few months back in supply chain, and to my surprise, 80% application were female. So
Oh, very good.
that was good. We recruited female.
No, and just one last point that I was remembering that in pharma, I think all of us know what a CF is. Today, despite the women with their constraints of may not be able to sit till the say 12 o'clock or to 1 in the night on sales closing, more and more CFAs are wanting to keep women as their operators, because women bring in a lot of commitment and sincerity, which probably doesn't come with the men. With due apologies.
Okay, so thank you for this sharing. I think it was very interesting. I want to ask a next question. And by the way, Dr. Pramod Patwardhan is a scientist. Okay, he is a research and development scientist by origin, and he's moved into supply chain, third-party manufacturing. So it's something unique to have a combination of such a person here. But Doctor, there's a large demand for supply chain logistics talent. However, employers are yet to show interest in this field. You being an exception, what can we as industry professionals do to change this notion?
Thank you, Ryan, for this question, and really appreciate the energy still in the room, because I think this is the last session after a very long day. So really appreciate. And before we start, I think a disclaimer that these are my individual views and nothing to do with the organization for which I work currently. So basically, Ryan,
I think all of us need to drive to this.
So yes, I think the responsibility around this question lies with us both as an individual leader as well as the forums like this, that how we can make this field more known to the talent which is upcoming and looking at potential opportunities. So I have a couple of points here. I think there are multiple initiatives which we can look at as an organizational or individual level, or at these kind of forums or organizations which are working for the common goal. So first one would be around awareness and education. So awareness is more within the organization, how we can sort of promote the pharma supply chain logistics roles within the organization and have structured approach so that the leadership is talking about these opportunities, so that the newer talent start looking at it more with a respect. And the education starts with how we can potentially partner with the universities so that we have appropriate relevant courses which are more certified, as well as we can offer the internships, which is a good tool to get the new talent into the workforce. Certifications and trainings, which are absolutely fundamental to this. The most important aspect could be also career visibility, because we may have the right talent, but if the talent, probably he or she doesn't know what sort of career path potentially they can acquire through the pharma logistics supply chain route, they may not be interested in continuing longer. So it's our responsibility as a leader to have a clear-cut path of growth opportunities subject to performance, and how we can keep periodically sharing that with our team so that they have visibility of what are the potential opportunities, and also make it known to the people from the cross-functional teams. As you said, I moved from function R&D to manufacturing to supply chain and that kind of stuff. But provided we explain to the individuals what sort of skill set are required and how those skill sets can be learned through some stretch projects while remaining in your current role. So if we can enable these kind of opportunities to people from other functions, probably there will be more and more candidates who will be interested in taking up these opportunities within this function. So I think it is up to the individual manager to stay committed that it is your responsibility to find out what kind of succession planning you have longer term for various key roles, how that to develop people who are ready now, who are ready later, and how do we work on building their skill sets. That's how I think I'll look at this.
Thank you, Pramod. I think next question I'm going to direct to Vilas, and maybe if Rashmi would like to add, also fine, but maybe first to Vilas. When it comes to training and development, okay, so now what kind of training do pharma organizations do with regards to their logistics personnel, the distributors, warehousing, distribution centers, and also with third-party logistics service providers? I mean, there could be a training to develop logistics talent at all levels. And in addition, can you highlight the challenges faced in the life science industry for effective training?
Yeah. So maybe I will just speak on an international front, though I don't have a domestic experience. But when you are handling a pharmaceutical product, it is highly regulated with the guidelines. So whoever person handles this should have a basic knowledge about the guidelines which are been there for the various countries, not only India but also the other part of the world. And these guidelines are always changing. So person should know that yes, this product should move in a proper direction, following the compliance method, and then it has to be delivered at the right time. Trainings are periodical in nature and that needs to be conducted, and it all depends on the management. Schedule of the training should be given down the line, not only to the managers but also to the operational level people. This also includes handling of sensitive products, cold chain products. Ambient temperature, when we talk about we want to move in ambient, what is ambient? India ambient is 40 degrees. Europe ambient is not more than 25 degrees or something like that. So we should be very specific on that. Plus, the person or the people who are handling pharmaceutical should be aware that the guidelines also changes. So you need to have a change adaptability and also a solution to it. We get a lot of regulation change. We get a lot of notification. They should be aware of what is happening today, not what was done 6 months back or 1 year back. So you should be ready to get change. In addition to this, when you are dealing with pharma products, you should share the information to your traders or your partners so that they are aware what is your requirement, what is your product's requirement, how to handle it or how it should be taken care of, not just moving a product from A to B. So there should be an interaction, periodical meetings. Since morning I can see there are a lot of topics on deviation. Deviation is also a big subject, but how to handle those deviation should also be known to your trade partners, not just inside your quality, logistics and your people. They should be aware of what are the requirement. As an auditor, what you should provide documents to justify yourself if in case of deviation, how risk mitigation actions are taken place. So for that also, schedule of training to be done. In our company, we do this training. It is done at site level, it is done at corporate level, and it is also done with external stakeholders. So these are some of the things.
Yes, I would like to add here, in order to have a very effective training and development program, it's important that we have a skill matrix defined. And a skill matrix requires that we need to have a training need identification done for employees. Now, what is this? This is actually a very structured process in which you can gauge the training requirements of your employees. So if you look at these training needs, they differ from employee category to category. So if in a warehousing and a distribution function, you have employees at different categories. You have your regular shop floor employees who are involved in the picking, packing, and dispatch of products. You have your material handling equipment operators. They are the MHE operators who handle different types of MHEs and the machines in the warehouse. You have the warehouse supervisors who handle the inbound operations, the outbound operations, the logistics and transportation. You also have your engineering and the maintenance team. For a factory, for a site, this is the backbone. This team is the backbone because they handle the building management system and the utilities in a warehouse. So for each of these categories of people, the skill matrix and the training need identification, the training plans vary. For example, for the people who are working on the shop floor, they're handling the product directly. It's important that they need to understand and they be well skilled in an MSDS. So an MSDS is a material safety data sheet, which is a very basic document that gives understanding of the physical and the chemical properties of the product and also tells you what is to be done during an emergency. Hence, since these people are handling the product directly, they need to have good knowledge about this document. They also need to understand the PPE matrix, which is the personal protective equipment matrix when they are handling these products. We just spoke about the pharma industry. So pharma industry caters various temperature ranges. So in Merck, we handle products that are stored and distributed in 2 to 8 degrees, 15 to 25 degrees, minus 20 degrees, minus 70 degrees. And again, you need to be very skilled to handle the packing, the distribution of these products. Just an example, we use dry ice in cold chain packaging. A very critical aspect here is that the employees need to wear cryogenic gloves when they pack material in dry ice. You cannot use the regular nitrile gloves because this can actually cause abrasion to your fingers. So these specific things have to be kept in mind when you develop a training plan for your employees. Similarly, for the MHE operators, this is a very critical role because most of the warehouses have various material handling equipment like forklifts. You have stackers, you have BOPTs, which are battery operated pallet trucks. You have EHPTs, which are electrical hand pallet trucks. We also have the VNA, which is a very narrow aisle equipment that's used to pick and put away material from your floor to your high racking systems. And to handle these sensitive critical equipments, you need to have licensed operators because this vehicle will be moving around in the warehouse with so many employees, a lot of products stored. So the skill development has to be done accordingly. I also personally feel that a process of conducting a HIRA, I'm sure many of you must have heard of HIRA, HIRA, which is Hazard Identification and Risk Assessment. This activity, if it's carried out on a yearly basis, it really helps because it helps you to identify what are the hazards in your various steps of your distribution network. It helps you to assess the risks associated with that hazard. And it also helps you to develop mitigation plans to either nullify that risk or reduce it to an acceptable level because possibly most of the risks may not be completely nullified. I think some of the challenges that we face in the life science industry, so we as Merck are a life science industry, we supply to a lot of pharmaceutical and R&D industries across the world. One of the biggest challenge for us is the nature of a product itself because 80% of the products that we handle are hazardous products. They fall in the HAZ category and they belong to different safety category classes like class 3, which is flammable liquids. We have class 4, which is flammable solids. Class 5, which is organic peroxides or oxidizers. We have class 6, which are toxic material. We handle class 8, which is corrosive, especially corrosive acids like hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid. So the importance of having a skill matrix and training for the employees who are involved, right from the picking to the packing to dispatches to even transportation becomes very critical. And when I say transportation, at least when you're in the warehouse, you have a control. But when you're handing it out to the transporters who are transporting your goods across the country, possibly the drivers, they may not be as trained. We cannot expect them to be as educated or as trained as our people. So what we do is we give out a TREM card, which is a transport emergency card, which in the local language mentions what has to be done or the basic things to be done when there is an emergency like a fire or an explosion, etc. I think these are the things that are important when we design a skill matrix. And I would like to conclude by saying, as leaders, we also have an accountability. And I think leadership accountability is by giving quality time, by giving the necessary budget for these initiatives. Because without this, I think if the top-down approach is not there, these initiatives may actually fail. So as leaders, if we drive employee engagement initiatives in the area of safety, in the area of quality, we can definitely contribute to a better training and development model.
Thank you, Rashmi. I think it was a fantastic knowledge sharing, really outstanding. I think I really learned a lot even from this session myself.
Just to add on a couple of points here to Rashmi's informative session. See, the current generation, I would say, the people who are coming into work are kind of unfamiliar with the basic logistics terms. So when we talk of, say, what is a PTL, what is an FTL, what is a 14-footer, what is a 21-footer, what is a 32-footer, what is the tonnage that would go into each of these vehicles. So most of the people who come into work are not familiar with such terms. And largely, it is a transporter who adds on from his knowledge to this. But I think maybe as senior leaders, we need to really look at, there should be some kind of maybe handbook on logistics, glossary, the summaries, the words, the typical words that are used. So in our days, there was something like perchun booking. So today, we'll talk of packloads, but nobody would have heard the word of what is perchun booking. So there was something like a canter load, LCVs. So these are the terms which most of the generation is not familiar with. I think this is something that we need to work on and maybe have the transporters impart this knowledge to the professionals?
And other than the all basic foundation, which I think all the panelists really explained well, I think as a leader, one of the basic skill set which is becoming more and more relevant these days is digital technologies and innovation.
Great.
So how we can really start understanding that ourselves, how we can start applying it to the supply chain transformation, because the younger generation is going to be more interested into this. And if you want to attract talent from cross-functional teams and the campuses, that kind of thing, so I think that will be additional something, some tool which we need to master.
Super.
And
Gaurav, okay. Also want to ask you a question because he's from the e-pharmacies. Okay, so this is something new, not new, but there's a lot of resistance in some parts of the public. There's a kind of perceptions which may not be correct, and therefore e-pharmacy is actually growing at a very fast pace, and they offer services like last mile delivery. So you get your medicines at home, and somehow or the other, there's still some notion that e-pharmacies are not as good as a chemist. So Gaurav has hands-on experience in this, and besides talking about the earlier question, maybe you could take this forward. Okay.
Sure. So just briefly touching the previous point, I think while largely covered, one, I think as Rashmi rightly mentioned, I think there's a lot of leadership involvement required in terms of when we talk about learning and development. There are certain principles, for instance, that one that comes top of my mind is 70-20-10. So 70% you always learn while in work, right, from your work experience. 20% you need to go attend trainings or developments, etc. 10% by cross pollination of knowledge and ideas. So I think a lot has been started in the supply chain industry and fraternity. The forums like these are also enabling a lot of cross pollination of ideas, but still there's a leadership mindset which I've seen in certain organizations takes it as a cost and not as an investment. I think that mindset shift is very, very important. And that's not just important from a training perspective. While that's a very, very direct benefit, this will also help in reducing the attrition in logistics and distribution, because we see a lot of trainings in marketing, in technology domain, in terms of AI and everything. There's a lot of training happening, but in supply chain, especially logistics distribution, there are very less. Now there are organizations and now there are institutes also collaborating together and doing a lot of programs like these. There are a lot of publishing, there are a lot of newsletters coming out, magazines coming out, and I think this is happening all in the right direction. But at the same time, we all as leaders here and in the entire room need to take that ownership in terms of putting more investment for upbringing and kind of cross pollination of ideas and talents, right? So I think that's one. To the previous question, to this question in terms of e-pharmacies, yes, there is again a notion, I would say, which is also I would say slightly cognitive, because e-pharmacies operate on a very kind of a model of discounting, etc., to start with. But that's more of in terms of to one kind of get customers on board that yes, you can order your products, your medicines, etc., and they are all equally genuine, because we are self-purchase from the manufacturers, the brands of the world. It's not that anything is manufactured right away by us. So we are there to fulfill, and there's an entire supply chain, I would say data science behind it, in terms of which pin code orders what medicines. We have those history of sales of data, and that's built across last almost a decade that we have been in the organization. So we know what products we need to store and how much quantity and what needs to be delivered. So there's the supply chain is evolving, and hence there are models also evolving. So we use a lot of, I would say, dark stores as well as hyper local models. So there's omni-channel coming into play, which did not exist so profoundly earlier in India. But here, there's very clear, I would say, data science behind it, what the customer orders and what and how he prefers to get it. So there can be a customer, like, you can order it online, but you can pick it while going home from one of our smart stores. You can also be a customer who wants to order at the store but get it home delivered, and there can be another third category who can order online and there's somebody to receive at home also at the given time. So it's for the convenience. As I was telling earlier, the entire model of this supply chain is keeping customer at the center. How do we ensure customer centricity or convenience to the customer? That's the science behind it. No rocket science. And how can be there can be multiple permutation and combination of ordering a medicine and getting it home delivered, or ordering a product and getting it, because it's not restricted to medicines alone. It's entire FMCG and OTC products as well. So you can do that. You order while in the morning when you are not feeling good, you can get Vicks Vaporub in next few hours at your hand. So I think there's a lot of agility also to be kind of enabled in it, because right now almost close to 70-75% of our orders are chronic, which is where customers are ordering it in time to get it in their hand with a good amount of discounts and at their convenience, especially the old age parents that we have. So I think that's more of convenience and chronic therapy. As we improve and work upon the speed of delivery in the last mile, I think we are capturing a lot of acute therapies as well, where it's more in terms of speed of delivery and early delivery that we are kind of trying to build upon. But rest assured, I think those who have ordered would understand or know about the safety and genuinity of the products, entire, be it cold chain or non-cold chain, and entire precautions are rather even more. We know for sure, or you all would have experienced, there are stores where at the end of the day lights are switched off and the stores are closed at night, right? But we have been entirely compliant in terms of maintaining cold chain, and even more so because we know we have to grow. We are nowhere right now there as compared to the larger trade. We are just 7 to 10% of the overall trade business. So we are more cautious and I think more acting with more convenience for the customer at the best price possible. Yeah.
Thank you, Gaurav. I think we have time for one last question, and then I'll throw it open to the house if there are any questions. So the question is for all of us can contribute. Simple words. I mean, we're always talking about how do we retain talent in logistics supply chain. What can we do to influence education institutions to promote courses in pharma logistics? Can we support recruiting, campus recruitment from such institutes? So in other words, in very simple language, what can be done to make supply chain logistics a profession of choice among the next generation?
See, if I will take this up, I think the most important thing is for organizations to recognize supply chain, distribution, logistics as a key function. I think today, even today, barring a few maybe MNCs, most of the organizations still look at logistics distribution as a cost center. It's not a cost center. It's a function which adds value, and organization has started accepting the fact that if they want to be sustainable in the future, they have to accept logistics as an area they need to focus upon. And as we have seen, a lot of us must have seen over the years that companies, if they were to look at cost cutting, the first axe would fall on logistics. So they'll tell you, reduce your transportation costs, reduce your CFA cost, and blah, blah. So it is most important is that function has to be perceived as a key function. And I think that thing will fall into place once that perception is accepted. So as you know, from my own experiences, that it was just a subject in an MBA. And today you have an entire MBA course which is on logistics and supply chain. So you have courses of 1 year or 2 year, because that's how organizations have started accepting that this function does need a specialized knowledge. So I know from 25, 30 years back in pharma, I think some of you would be able to identify with that, that if a person was not performing in sales, he was shunned to distribution. Because what, distribution doesn't really need brains. So वहां नहीं successful हुआ तो चलो distribution में डाल दो. That was the understanding. But it has changed for good. This changing. Still, no, we have not reached where we would like to be. Yes, but it is changing. I think, and that's how today there are courses, and the companies have started recruiting professionals. Some of the even institutes insist on engineering background in order to, be eligible for courses in operations and supply chain. But that is the transition over the last 30, 40 years.
In addition to that, companies have recognized, and our company also has a tie-up with some reputed colleges, not only for logistics supply chain, but for other departments. Also, some trainings are scheduled with epics, so people get to know about more certification. They can join the course, so that helps in getting a talent pool with the latest knowledge.
Just to add, I think another key factor to enable or engage more talent and also reduce attrition is that we bring in a lot of logistics is perceived as earlier also mentioned, more stressful, right? So where you are doing more execution. If you can portray with the right set of data that no, logistics has a lot that can be done. It's not that stressful if you plan well, if you plan your things well. It's not just execution. If you plan it in advance, if you start looking at lead indicators instead of lag indicators. Why, I don't know, some organizations still have that fascination for OTIF. It's OTIF is dead. You are doing a postmortem, but still there's a fascination for OTIF. So plan well. I don't think there will be stress, and we as leaders also need to bring more fun at work in terms of distribution and logistics, because while there's a fancy marketing team and sales team doing a lot of work, but they also do a lot of parties, etc. We need to show that yes, supply chain is also a lively stream, and I think we need to attract and do a lot of training engagements and forums like these. I think it's very, very important that we keep connecting and cross sharing and have these forums.
I think an important thing is to also bring in parity in the salaries.
Yeah.
So today what you see is that for the same kind of maybe qualifications, the same experience, I have seen that always a supply chain professional would be paid lower than the marketing and sales professional. But the same amount of experience or even a better competency and better intelligence. Yeah. But just because you are labeled as SCM and logistics professional, you will always be paid less. And marketing professional, and I've seen it across the pharma companies. I've been 35 years in pharma industry and I've worked in the best of organizations. And unfortunately, even today, a supply chain professional is paid much lower than the marketing professional. And that also results in a lot of attrition at the junior level. Because, when they see that the marketing people are getting more salaries. So I think as senior leaders, we need to somehow have a dialogue with the senior management. That, yes, there has to be a parity. Both are MBAs or both have the same number of years of experience. Why not?
However, things are changing for good.
Of course they are.
Things are changing for good. And I think while COVID is a unfortunate black swan event, but it got the due recognition to all supply chain and logistics member. I think when I was there in Cipla, we were running and chasing for remdesivir and products like these. But I think that was the time where right from the audience or right from everybody from respected Prime Minister, everybody recognized that yes, supply chain does something. Otherwise, people always felt supply chain is like the movement of stuff, trucks, etc. That is supply chain. People understood, no, there's much more in supply chain, and we all got the recognition across the nation, I think, across the globe.
In fact, I think that's the distribution and supply chain was the only function that was there on the
was
shop
there
floor
up and about,
during
yeah.
COVID, and nobody
Absolutely.
is. And Ryan, to add on to what you just mentioned, I think the collaboration that industries have with institutions, and that's something we Merck also do with a lot of institutions, especially through industrial visits of students who are in their first year and the second year, because that's the time when they theoretically
Foundation.
learn about the principles of supply chain. And that's when they are growing into their career. And at that time, they come and actually practically see the situation of warehouses. I think that can help mold them to develop their career. And we can have more
Very
talents into supply chain.
Amor, anything?
I would just like to add, yes, in terms of this collaboration, I think it's also the responsibility of these leaders to look at the current academic curriculum, which is focusing on pharma logistics, if the institute is having one, and what are the gaps in terms of the current industry trends, so how we can help bridging those gaps. Look at the on-campus recruitments, how we can participate actively into that, have the internship program, so we give the opportunity for the right candidates, and ensure that we have light leadership development programs through those, where even the logistics is included into one part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think we have time for maybe one question, two questions if there are from the audience. If you are not too tired, we'll be happy to take them. Any questions or? Yeah, there's one. Oh.
Yeah, hi. I run a small trucking company in India handling lots of pharmaceutical and handling temperature control shipments. First of all, I appreciate the lady sitting in the dais. And even in my company, I have 30% staff who are just women, and they are doing an awesome job. What I have seen in my 29 years of experience is, like, we have been speaking, handling pharma day in, day out. But a very less amount of knowledge is being given to a truck driver who is handling the entire shipment on our behalf. And it is meant for the global export, even for the domestic export, domestic distributions and everything. Can we guys emphasize some kind of a basic training at the plant level so that we can share some ideas like how you are supposed to handle it with precision and care, so that there are less excursions and damages to the shipment?
So I can take that question.
Yeah. So in Merck, you're very right, because as I also mentioned when I spoke, it's possible to give a good amount of training for people in the warehouse, because at that time the product is within your reach. But the minute it goes out, when it's in transit, it's handled by truck drivers across, and sometimes it's not right to expect them to know everything what the warehouse people know. So in Merck, what we have is we have quarterly training programs at our site, and where we give detailed, understanding to the babus, the truck babus, as well as the drivers on what specifically has to be done while handling temperature control shipments or while handling, hazardous cargo. And we also have visits done to them once in 6 months, because we also have a handling staff at the transport hubs. We have device training programs for them, at least that's what we do in Merck. Because the safety of our product, the quality of our product is definitely in the hand of the service provider. It's very important for us.
And if you're including sort of dependent on the external service provider, then ensure it is all built into your contracts with them.
Exactly.
So that the training aspects is covered.
And just to add, I think there's concrete data which says that the organizations and even the LSPs are now into it, but there's concrete data to say that those organizations who are investing even in your service provider and truck drivers are having lesser excursions. So it's more kind of profitable or beneficial in an indirect way, because as one consignment that goes for excursion is in millions, right? So you're in fact investing and saving a lot. So, and it's again entire leadership mindset, that again not to take those trainings or programs as cost, but as again investment, right? Because you are engaging and you are fostering a very important partnership with your service provider or with your partners, and hence not to take them as vendors but as more partners, because they will also feel more engaged. And I've seen people telling, oh sir, this organization takes our trainings and we have concrete SOPs in our place. So I think they relish, and there's a very strong partnership and engagement just beyond the cost. Yeah.
Thank you. And with this, I would like to thank our experts on this panel for sharing such a rich experiences. Thank you very much.